acting different on people on camera, and they acting different.
All right, guys, welcome back to the WJS podcast. It's been a while. I would say it's been about, give or take, another 6 months. The last time we had a conversation, I think we were maybe 40 games into the regular season. Not only did we miss the end of the season, the rise and fall of the Lakers, we also missed the NBA championship. But, new season, new opportunity. And, coming into the season, I started to think to myself, what are key points to talk about for the next season? And to be honest with you, it's been more and more apparent that I think it's just time to talk about the whole Kevin Durant situation, just from top to bottom, because I just feel like when they talk about the CBA coming up and players paying for the mistakes of others, I really feel like the Ben Simmons situation, the Kevin Durant situation are just prime examples of just what's going to be used against players. For those of you that don't know, I'm actually from Brooklyn, so by default, I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan, or at least when you have a team in your hometown, you tend to cheer for them. But that's not necessarily the case with the Knicks. But let's talk about KD's situation for one episode here. I'm kind of gonna go off a ramble, kind of go off script, but let's see. So I just kind of want to give you guys context because I want to give KD his credit. KD came into the league in 2007, and he was the youngest scoring champion between 2009 and 2010 that season, and even had a playoff appearance. He even had a very promising finals run in 2012, right? So the reason I'm bringing up the context of KD's career is because by the caption of this video is going to say, I think Kevin Durant's career might be over. And I know I mean legacy. His legacy might be over. He's never going to be regarded as one of the top players. Well, in the GOAT conversation, is going to be regarded as the top player in the world. But I don't really see how KD can recover being 33, 34 years old, and how I give him maybe 3 prime years left of his contract is going to play out. And I don't even know where he's going to go after this. Because if we look, in 2012, 2013, Westbrook was out. He had a torn meniscus from the Patrick Beverley incident. They got eliminated from the Spurs that very next season when both Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant went healthy. And then between 2014 and 2016, Kevin Durant's last 2 years on OKC, remember he had that Jones fracture that kept him out for the season for 2014 to 2015. Then from 2015 to 2016, they lost to the Warriors 3-1. Now I kind of want to get into some KD slander here, because when Kevin Durant joins the Nets, forget the Warriors for right now. When Kevin Durant joins the Nets, he does so with Kyrie Irving. Remember, the talk of the town was Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, and what they were going to accomplish when they got here. Let me paint this picture for you guys. Kyrie Irving, KD, they come to the Nets. Don't forget that Kevin Durant is coming off of an Achilles injury. He's out for the entire season. If we're being honest and we're being fair, Kyrie Irving gets injured middle of the year with the Nets, and then decides, you know what, I'm not going to play out the rest of the season. In my opinion, I think Kyrie Irving was healthy when we got into the playoffs. I just think he said, you know what, it doesn't make sense. KD's not here, so I might as well sit out as well. From the very beginning that Kevin Durant set foot in the Nets organization, he was given exactly what he wanted. Before Kevin Durant got here, Kenny Atkinson was the coach. Don't forget that Kevin Durant was traded for D'Lo at a very well-protected first-round pick to the Warriors. That is the move that orchestrated Wiggins onto the Warriors. And so that's one. They got rid of Kenny Atkinson. You got the coach that you wanted in Steve Nash. You got the player that you wanted in Kyrie Irving. I'm not 100% sure if the Nets are going to sign Kyrie Irving without Kevin Durant. I think that's a conversation to be had. So you automatically got two of the things that you wanted. You got a fully max guaranteed contract coming off an Achilles injury. You got the coach that you wanted, and you got the teammate that you wanted. And wait, and don't even forget DeAndre Jordan. I forgot that here in my notes as well. DeAndre Jordan It was between Jared Allen and DeAndre Jordan. And KD wanted DeAndre Jordan to start. Jared Allen is now an all-star in the Cleveland Cleveland Cavaliers, getting set to have maybe another max contract. And DeAndre Jordan, I think right now is jobless. So that gives you a good idea of the dynamic there. So fast forward into the next season. Your playmate, your teammate, your guy, Kyrie Irving, your best friend, start of the season isn't showing up for work. And you, Kevin Durant, are. Now, remember, Kevin Durant is still coming off that Achilles injury, so he's basically playing by himself. My question is, from this first point of trouble, don't you say to yourself, okay, well, I have to hold maybe Kyrie Irving accountable. From that very beginning when we saw Kyrie Irving take breaks, up until the point that he returned, Kevin Durant didn't hold Kyrie accountable. The Nets didn't hold Kyrie accountable. Kyrie didn't hold Kyrie accountable. Because when Kyrie returned, we all thought that it was kind of this big idea, this big mental health moment where Kyrie just needed a couple games off and then he would be perfectly fine. And in reality, kind of looking back at that situation, it was more so Kyrie just didn't want to play at that moment in time for the Nets. At least that's how I took it. So now we have Steve Nash, we have Kyrie, we have KD. We have comments coming from Kyrie saying that they can coach their own team. And now you have James Harden, who's in the mix, who's requested a trade from the Houston Rockets. Remember initially that the Nets said that we don't need Harden because they felt like they had a championship team, and in all respects, they did. They had a top point guard in the league, a top 2, top 3 player in the, at the small forward position. Off the top of my head, they had Jared Allen, they had Karis LeVert, and they had Spencer Dinwiddie. They had 3 key pieces, and as well as 2 franchise players. They had enough. But the uncertainty of Kyrie made it such that you had to force your hand in order to trade for James Harden. And remember, KD was 100% on board with the James Harden trade. So that's another peg. That's another statement. That's another basically thing that you wanted. You got the coach you wanted, the player that you wanted, another teammate. You got 2 teammates that you wanted, and DeAndre Jordan, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, 3 teammates that you wanted. So now I'm asking myself, okay, how does this spill into a scenario where Kevin Durant is unhappy with the Nets organization? Fast forward again, up until the trade deadline. Kyrie Irving, there's uncertainty if James Harden is going to stay. He hasn't signed an extension. Kyrie Irving, the Nets aren't necessarily willing to give him an extension, especially because of the vaccine mandate at the time. And Kevin Durant is the only person to sign his contract extension, which, to be honest with you, wasn't the smartest move or the smartest play at the time. Even when I saw him sign that extension, I said to myself, it doesn't make sense. I guess he wanted to put his best foot forward because he signed before James Harden was in talks and before Kyrie Irving was in talks. I guess that's the way of saying, hey, you know what? I'm just going to do this, make sure you guys are comfortable, make sure that we're all here, make sure that we're all cool. Fine. Now, the problem that I have with Kevin Durant's trade request right now is it's not even done strategically. So now you have a failure of a season. James Harden was out of shape. Kyrie Irving wasn't the best teammate. Now we're here. It's August. When you requested the trade, I think Kevin Durant maybe requested the trade maybe 6 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. Whatever time Kevin Durant requested the trade is when free agency was already done. Whatever time Kevin Durant requested a trade is when coaches were already picked. Now, another article that came out today was that Kevin Durant said to ownership that it's either him or Sean Marks and Steve Nash. Again, here's my problem with this. Kevin Durant was given everything by this GM in Sean Marks. He was given players. He was given a role in the franchise on what to do in terms of making calls for trades, just like another player like LeBron James. And every step of the way, I think KD was made the most comfortable as possible. Even until the very end, even now, I'm not even sure what's going on with Kevin Durant and Kyrie, because reports are saying that they want to play together, but not for the Nets organization. It's like a Kawhi situation where Kawhi went up to the team and said, you know what, I would love to play for you guys, but I don't necessarily want to play for this organization. It still doesn't make sense. Now, there could be something innately wrong with the Nets organization and Sean Marks. But if Kevin Durant is judging Sean Marks on his choices made throughout the last 3 seasons, they're really KD's choices, right? Because, again, the Nets weren't going to sign off on a Harden trade until KD wanted it, and until it was uncertain what Kyrie's future was going to look like on the Nets organization, which to be honest with you, turned out to be a very smart move. Remember that Kevin Durant got the security the first year that he got into the Nets organization to say, I'm not going to play for a year, I'm going to rehab and I'm going to recover, and then the next year I'm going to come back, I'm going to be the same exact player I was before, or even better, and averaging 30 points per game. Not many players get that. I understand Kevin Durant was going to get that regardless. But he was still afforded that security and then given a max extension. Now, we're in this point in August where I'm asking myself, where is Kevin Durant really going to go? I have two conferences here. I have the West and I have the East, and we can go down the list of why Kevin Durant's not going to any of these teams. The Phoenix Suns have nothing to offer except picks and Mikal Bridges and Jay Crowder and Dario Saric. The Memphis Grizzlies, again, remember Ben Simmons is also on the team, so I think players like Desmond Baines can get on the team, but I don't think players like Jaren Jackson can play on the team because of the rookie extension. So all the Grizzlies have to offer is Desmond Baines. Maybe John Morant too, but then it doesn't make sense for Kevin Durant. Unless the Nets, of course, say, you know what, forget and fuck his feelings, because we're going to do this anyways. Then you have the Golden State Warriors, which is plausible, but again, the Warriors don't need to do this. They just won the last championship. To me, the best team in the league right now is the Bucks. But if I just won a championship, I don't need Kevin Durant. The Mavericks have cap space, but they don't have any player except Luka. The Jazz are in rebuilding mode, they're probably not going to sign up for a 33, 34-year-old player like Kevin Durant. The Timberwolves could make sense, but there's already been a couple trade offers for the Timberwolves. The Pelicans I thought was perfect. And apparently there was a trade offer where the Nets just wanted Brandon Ingram back, and they were going to get KD and, of course, a couple picks. But that fell short. So I guess the Pelicans are out of there too. Maybe the Clippers. But again, it's, do you want Kawhi, who's, to be honest with you, is not the easiest to work with? Do you want Paul George? And I mean, Paul George is kind of up there in age too. There's nothing, I don't feel like there's anything substantial that the Clippers could really offer. The Lakers are a wash, they're out of here. The Kings are a wash, they're out of here. The Portland Trailblazers, again, are another wash. OKC maybe has some of the assets, but I really find it hard for a realistic trade with OKC to go down. Okay, now let's move over to the Eastern Conference. I won't even include the Houston Rockets. Miami only has Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo to offer. Realistically, Miami only has Tyler Hero and Kyle Lowry to offer. I think Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler are totally off limits. The Boston Celtics, I'm actually going to keep this last because I feel like there's a legitimate argument here. The Bucks, all you have is Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton. I think the Bucks don't have all of their picks, so I don't think that makes sense. The 76ers is maybe a possibility. The way this would work is Tobias Harris, Tyrese Maxey, maybe for Steph Curry. They don't have many picks. Maybe they have rights to 1 or 2 more picks. But I don't see that necessarily working. Toronto's not giving up Scotty Barnes. And if I'm Toronto, I'm saying this. You can have either Fred VanVleet or Pascal Siakam. You can't have both. And if I'm the Nets, I'm saying to myself, well, the deal doesn't make sense. The Bulls, the Bulls are kind of where the Heat are. They're kind of in a mixed bag. And to be honest with you, their assets don't amount or sum up to KD. You have the Hawks. Hawks are a possibility. Actually, no, the Hawks aren't a possibility because they just got DeJounte Murray. The Cleveland Cavaliers. I mean, if the Nets really wanted to be. I mean, no, because then you're getting the same assets you just traded away. You might as well have kept. You might as well have just kept Karis LeVert and Jared Allen. Charlotte Hornets, they have nothing to offer, especially with Miles Bridges and his domestic violence case. The New York Knicks, trades within the same island. Shout out to Hodge, aren't going to happen. KD's not going to the Wizards. KD's not going to Indiana. I don't even think Indiana nor the Pistons nor the Magic have the assets for Kevin Durant. So going down through this list, there is no possible scenario. Okay, other than maybe the Warriors and maybe the Boston Celtics to get a deal done. And if I'm the Nets, I'm thinking about this strategically, especially if I'm the Celtics. Jaylen Brown has to be part of the deal. And to be honest with you, the Nets wanted Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart. I don't think you need Marcus Smart. The reason I say you don't need Marcus Smart is because Marcus Smart might make a difference in winning a championship, but he's not going to make a difference when you're middle of the pack. The best player right now to get is Jaylen Brown. Instead of getting Marcus Smart, just get another 2 picks. I think that makes sense. And if I'm the Celtics, you cannot really trust, based on what I saw last year. Based on what I saw in the finals, the question is, can you trust Jason Tatum in the finals? Because the best player in the finals on the Celtics was Jaylen Brown, which is a scary thought. So, but the best player on the Celtics is Jason Tatum. So it's kind of a thing where you're saying to yourself, okay, I need to get a player that's better than Jason Tatum in order to close. That's Kevin Durant. Now, the way you shoot yourself in the foot is you're saying, okay, well, Kevin Durant is 34 or 33. I got to check how old he is. So you really only have 2 or 3 year window to win a championship. And right now, you really have like a 5-year window to win a championship if you can keep Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, that core group the same. So, and especially if Jaylen Brown says, I'll also resign for max money. So if I'm the Celtics, I'm pulling the trigger on this trade just because of this one reason. Jaylen Brown has been in so many trade talks, I'm not even sure if he's going to resign. KD is going to be a better player than Jason Tatum, even now, even since the last finals that we had. So it only makes sense to say, okay, KD's going to be our closer once we get deeper and deeper into the playoffs. I don't necessarily think, and I think that even though Jaylen Brown is important defensively, I think you can make up for it, especially since you got Malcolm Brogdon, who also plays pretty good defense. So I think the Boston Celtics are the most realistic here. And the Warriors, again, they can do it, but I don't think they need to or have to do it. You just won a championship. Might as well see if you can do it again. The second best team in the West right now is, the only teams that I fear right now are the Clippers, the Timberwolves, the Pelicans. But if I'm asking myself, I'm saying the Warriors are better than the Timberwolves. Jaren Jackson is out. I think he broke his wrist or he has a torn ligament or needs surgery somewhere. So he's going to be out for at least the beginning of the season. I think that might hamper the Grizzlies. And I think the West is wide open. Meanwhile, I'm looking at the East and I'm saying to myself, it's still stacked. So if I'm KD, I'm trying to go to the Celtics. So, I mean, me personally, I don't really think there's a deal to be done here. But if there is a deal to be done, it's going to have to be the Boston Celtics. And that's, to me, that's the only thing that makes sense here. And KD has, I think, publicly but privately said he doesn't want to really play for the Celtics because of the experience that Kyrie Irving had. But at the end of the day, it's business. I mean, you roll up into an organization, say that you want these players, say that you want these coaches, but then one day turn around and say, you know what, I actually don't want to even play for this organization anymore. Or I don't actually want to be a part of this team anymore. Or reports come out that before the Boston series even started, you said that we're not even going to win. I just feel like KD's in a really bad situation and a really bad spot. And I'm not necessarily sure if there's a fix-it button. Going through all those teams, all 30 NBA teams, I think KD's probably going to stay put. If you guys think that there's a better trade option, a better scenario, 3-team trade, a 4-team trade, I really do not think something to the Lakers is going to work, unless, of course, it's AD for Kevin Durant. But because, you know, two long-term deals, and, of course, the Lakers would want something like that, but then you have LeBron and KD playing together. I don't even know if LeBron would co-sign on that. So it's one of those situations where I think Kevin Durant should just buckle up for the season, because the closer and closer we get to training camp, and the more demands that KD is making, which aren't strategic at all, the less of a chance he has of going to a competent team for competent pieces. So I personally think that unless KD is going to the Celtics or the Warriors, he'll probably be at the bottom of the barrel in terms of teams. And if not, I think we'll see him in a Nets uniform next season, or at least starting in a Nets uniform next season. I don't think this is one of those situations like a Westbrook situation where you can say, oh, okay, yeah, you know what? He's going to, a Westbrook or LeBron situation where you can say, no, he can't come back at all. Because Kevin Durant doesn't have that kind of personality. And I'm pretty sure if he's on the Nets next season, he's going to play. And if he doesn't play to the best of his ability, then it's not really hurting anybody except for him, because the Nets are technically still a contender to win the East. I don't know if they're a championship contender, but with the team that they have right now, if they get maybe one more legitimate big. But that's all I got for you guys. Tell me what you guys think. Wow, I should really think of an outro.